In a very concrete sense, Undertale is a meme, mimetic in both the colloquial definition as well as the scholarly definition. The game and its ideas have propagated like wildfire since its release nearly 10 years ago in 2015. Since it was created, there has been a grand deluge of fan art, fan theories, fan fiction, and other derivative media, the likes of which is difficult to truly comprehend. So many people have crafted high-effort iterations on the original game Undertale that Undertale fan games have fan communities of their own. Undertale has gone beyond its humble beginnings as a modest Kickstarter project made by the Homestuck collaborator Toby Fox. What lies at the heart of both Undertale's popularity and success as a mimetic text? The answer is clear to anyone who has recently experienced or re-experienced the game. The vivid, intensely real characters and their evocative dialogue, interactions, and stories. Most analysis in Undertale revolves around some form of latent mystery, something unexplained fit for exploration and interpretation, such as the infamous W.D. Gaster mystery or Undertale's heretofore shrouded connection to Deltarune. Ironically, these mysteries are now overexplored, the ground tread by so many feet that there isn't a player who doesn't know one of the most esoteric characters in the game. There is not enough analysis examining the more obvious, the characters themselves, what makes them work, who they are, and what we can learn from them. The skeleton is traditionally a symbol for death and horror. Pirates plastered human skulls on their flags to intimidate their foes. The crossbones is an ancient indicator for poison across cultures, and human remains are a sobering memento mori that transcends media. The fear of seeing human beings rendered so dead their very dermis, their identity is stripped, is a core, inbuilt, existential horror. And then there's Papyrus. When I see Papyrus's bones, I see a man with nothing to hide. No thought goes unspoken, no emotion goes unfelt, and nothing is left up to the imagination. Papyrus crashes through his life in a way that is so earnest, it crosses over from embarrassing to endearing in mere moments. Papyrus is a man who is open to the world, a man who doesn't concern himself with the opinions of others, and does what he believes to be right with such an intense intuition that he feels superheroic. His faith never wavers, even when he is only a head lying on the ground. He has nothing to forgive because it is impossible to do him wrong. Intense, unwavering passion oozes from Papyrus from the moment he appears on screen.
You know what's up, brother? It's been 8 days and you still haven't recalibrated your puzzles!
I'm not gonna do that voice the whole time. Such an unflinching conviction that nearly always pays off. He is, to be blunt, an inspiration. Of course, Papyrus does have his quirks. He is singularly in his own little world, usually oblivious to the people around him, and indifferent to their comings and goings. He is annoyed by Sans and looks up to Undyne, but these feelings on his part feel almost transient. There are very few times when Papyrus truly reflects on himself and his relationships. He more accurately understands his relationships as universal constants. He is also preoccupied in a singular fashion. The whole game before arriving in Snowdin is spent contending with his various traps in a misguided attempt to capture a human on behalf of Asgore for reasons he doesn't fully comprehend. Someone pointed him in a direction and he followed with the attentiveness of a lemming. In this way, he reminds me of the characters Monkey D. Luffy or Son Goku in the way that he is impulsive and oblivious, but also fiercely loyal. He is defined by antics, in the way only truly carefree characters are able. Even though he at first seems naive, we quickly come to understand Papyrus's faith doesn't come from stupidity or lack of information. In the genocide route, he acknowledges Frisk's danger and confronts them. Though the in-game Frisk is unwavering, and Papyrus's faith is entirely misplaced, critically, Papyrus's faith in the player is not necessarily misguided. Seeing Papyrus's gruesome death and the bravery he faces it with was likely a significant reason many people abandoned their genocide runs. Even still, in the genocide run, Papyrus barely acknowledges he is dying. He greets his death not with fear, but with an assurance that the player can be a better person. It's haunting. It gives the sense of a man who is somehow immune to the very concept of death. Moreover, one that we have just killed. It makes his murder feel all the more striking and wicked. All this underlined by the fact that Papyrus is, according to Undyne, incredibly strong. If Sans is any benchmark, then Papyrus could be even more powerful if he chose to let loose. In this way, he is somewhat like Mob from Mob Psycho 100, someone who does not value his own strength due to his morals and outlook, though he is significantly more outgoing than Mob.
The reason I like Papyrus so much is because he's really stupid. He's dumb as fuck. He is one of the dumbest characters in the game. And yet he still manages to be very charismatic and, love those around him simply by, just being honest and earnest. And his full enthusiasm, he doesn't get ground down. He's not afraid of people judging him. And he's clearly aware of people judging him. But he just wants so badly to be accepted. And he's convinced that he's capable of being accepted. And so he's just happy. He's a happy guy. He's like, I'm on my way to being, popular and cool, so who the fuck cares?
In the pacifist route, of course, Papyrus lives, and his faith in Frisk pays off in spades. Papyrus is the binding glue that holds the character together, influencing Sans, Undyne, Alphys, and later Asgore and Toriel. He is relentless in his social quest. We as humans struggle with keeping up with our friends, especially in adulthood, forgetting to text them or feeling too exhausted to muster a response. Sometimes there is nothing to talk about at all. Papyrus, on the other hand, always has something to talk about. When you call him, he answers. His friendship is not transactional. It is not based upon repeated exposure or social tenets. It is based on how much he likes you without regard for reciprocity. He gives. He isn't worried about how much he gets back because the giving is the joy. Critically, though, Papyrus does get back. His friends are devoted to him as he is to them, such as when Undyne decides on his behalf to accept Frisk, her enemy, in the pacifist run. In this way, there is a certain utilitarian kindness to Papyrus. He is out of touch, strange, and doesn't connect to others very well, often being entirely off the mark about reality. In another story, these character traits would describe an apathetic psychopath, a killer, a detached stranger. In Undertale, Papyrus's blunt and frankly sometimes violent demeanor is entirely undercut by his conviction and devotion to others. We don't see Papyrus's devotion as passionate necessarily. Earlier, I described the connections he has as transient. It's hard to imagine him feeling sad on someone else's behalf, and if someone drifted out of Papyrus's life, it is hard to imagine him mourning them. He would likely delight at their memory before feel remorse or miss them. In this way, Papyrus is an antithesis to the concept of psychopathy. In other words, Papyrus is a strange, detached man who still has a gargantuan love in his life. How can this be? Traditional wisdom would lead us to believe that a detached, oblivious person ought to be destructive and evil, should be driven by a profound selfishness. Compare Papyrus to Rick from Rick and Morty. Both men are inventors, both men have unique social hurdles, and both men are aloof in a manner that leads them to become quickly annoyed with those around them. Why is Papyrus happy where Rick is sad? There are, of course, other elements, like Rick's tragic past, but ultimately, the in-the-moment difference between them is how they surround themselves. Papyrus surrounds himself with people who like him. A natural magnetism that shines through makes it difficult to dislike him. He is too good for the world. But paradoxically, all he has to do is be nice. The word altruism is usually synonymous with selflessness in the modern age, but altruism also refers to a principled idea of philosophy and ethics. Altruism in this principled sense is the notion that kindness and selflessness is either ethically or materially good, indicating that a proponent of altruism ought to do selfless acts. The philosopher Aristotle, in his moral teachings, spoke highly of altruism. Quote, "It is the characteristic of the magnanimous man to ask no favor but be ready to do kindness to others." End quote. Going a step further, Papyrus shows us that outside of a moral good in and of itself, there are benefits to be reaped from being good to others and serving them. This could be referred to as reciprocal altruism, the idea that a tendency towards selfless deeds leads to reciprocal kindness. This idea is surprisingly controversial in the modern era. People have come to think more in terms of every man for himself, which is disappointing. Humans are a social species. The idea of reciprocal altruism in some ways is inbuilt to our very beings. The idea that a human being is or should be selfish is arrogant and absurd. Papyrus, of course, isn't a human, but he still embodies this intuitive reciprocal altruism. He does things for others, and in its own amorphous way, good things come to him in turn. It's not a perfect system, evidenced by the genocide route and his fate, but Papyrus is a testament to what can be achieved even if you have no social skills or awareness. If you live by doing good for others, love will find you. If you stop keeping score of how kind others are, the outpouring of your love will be unstoppable. There is another facet to Papyrus that is worth discussing. Outwardly, Papyrus comes off as naive but intuitive, yet he seems to be much more intelligent than he lets on. There is no moment where he tips his hand and proves that he is more than naive, but there are many pieces of evidence that indicate Papyrus is a much smarter person than the player thinks. For example, Papyrus has a book on his shelf titled Advanced Puzzle Construction for Critical Minds. Is this meant to be a joke at his expense? Maybe not. After all, it seems like it was he who designed the famous tile floor puzzle in Snowdin and Hotland, but that's never confirmed. There are also the wealth of things Papyrus says in his phone calls that seem slightly off. In a Hotland room, he says that he would like to meet death. At the hotel, he confirms that he has a friend who is a flower, indicating that he is friends with Flowey, the game's antagonist. Some fan theories seem to believe Papyrus is in some way playing dumb, but I don't think that fits with what we see of him. He certainly contains a surprising level of intelligence, but he would not intentionally trick people into thinking he is less smart than he is. He simply has a direct way of speaking that doesn't betray his intelligence and awareness. It's a lesson in how certain people can be underestimated if you don't look closely.
Papyrus dabs MTT brand Bishy cream behind his ear. What the fuck is Bishy cream? I haven't heard the word Bishy in fucking forever.
Hold up longer to jump higher. Jeez.
I know, Papyrus. I know, Dad. Oops.
Speaking of underestimated, let's talk about Papyrus's battle. While traveling to Snowdin, Papyrus acts strangely. He occasionally backs out of the screen to humorous effects, and manipulates physics in odd ways, like when he leaps out of Undyne's window. Undyne even saying Papyrus usually sticks the landing. Then, during Papyrus's battle, he is the only character that remains absolutely still throughout the entire fight. Unlike every other boss monster, he remains completely static. This is unlike during his date, where he has a number of idle animations and actions. This, of course, in a mechanical sense, is probably just because Toby Fox coded this fight and then didn't add anything as some kind of oversight. But it gives the impression that Papyrus's movements, or lack thereof, are intentional on Papyrus's part, as if he operates on game or cartoon logic. It indicates that Papyrus, much like Napstablook and Toriel, who also move very little, is not putting his all into the battle, even in the genocide run. There's also the matter of his ultimate special attack, which is eaten by the annoying dog, who, you will know, is Toby Fox's own stand-in. This is meant to be humorous, of course, but the fact that Toby Fox has to intervene in the battle makes it seem like Papyrus's strength is massive in some way that we aren't capable of seeing. The nail in the coffin is when Papyrus asks if Sans is pranking you across time and space again, and referring to Sans' antics as annoying. He seems to have a very good understanding of being inside of a game and its mechanics, but he doesn't care. Papyrus has a great deal of overlap with an archetype popularized by the philosopher Albert Camus. Papyrus is an absurd hero. In absurdist philosophy, the absurd does not just refer to being strange and weird, but to the palpable and plain absurdity of human life. We exist in an impermanent universe as transient beings, which is existentially terrifying and completely absurd. According to Camus, one can neither ignore the absurd, rationalize the absurd, or, what is implicitly the best outcome, to accept the absurd. To accept that life is strange and terrible, yet at the same time sacred and beautiful. To accept the contradiction that in life you can experience both the joys of sexual intercourse, delicious food, and good friends, while also contending with death, illness, destruction, and war. Papyrus is the absurd incarnate. He is a man who befriends the very being who he wishes to destroy. He is able to find love in the thing that he hunts. This is unlike Undine or Asgore, who are more focused on their goals of escaping the underground. Papyrus discards his mission seemingly on a whim. Papyrus follows his whims and is guided by them, and far from being punished for being quixotic and scatterbrained, he is the character who is most at peace with himself. He has the most serenity. Every night he lies in a race car bed, though he doesn't know how to sleep, to get up in the morning to talk to his closest friends. His life is beautiful because of what he already has. Furthermore, though he seems to comprehend his existence, being in a transient video game, he doesn't seem to care and instead focuses on the small-scale things that can actually bring him comfort. Still, even with his confidence and bravado, there is a certain sadness to Papyrus. Though it is admirable to make friends with one's enemies and to endure the absurdity of life, one also has to ask, what kind of person would want this? Papyrus's idea of fame and glory seem very shallow compared to the love that he gets from the people around him, and his bravado, while in some measure earned, seems hollow. He calls himself the Great Papyrus, but he's really just some schmo from Snowden. A great loneliness surrounds Papyrus, one that isn't filled by his friends and loved ones. He desires not only friends, but recognition for his actions, adoration by his peers and strangers alike. There is something relatable about this. Fame and fortune are very common driving desires, but they are usually sought after by those who have some kind of lack in their lives, a lack that is filled with this external validation. The question is, why? What isn't Papyrus getting from Undine and Sans and all his other friends? What is missing from his life that he needs to project this image of himself? He seldom speaks of his past, so we can't opine to that. And he doesn't seem outwardly sad around his peers, but at the same time there is a certain distance that Papyrus seems to maintain at all times. By distance, I mean figurative and literal. In Snowden, he speaks to you from across gaps and across the traps he makes for you. In his battle, he meets you across a field that is distorted with snow. After you get his phone number, he speaks to you across space in that way. If you date him, he quickly decides that he would prefer not to, and even when you're allowed into his house, he doesn't take off the uniform he's usually seen wearing. During the friendship building with Undine, Papyrus doesn't stick around, instead leaving abruptly. Why this distance? It seems likely that there is something about Papyrus that he feels people don't understand about him. His mind works differently. Call it autism or neurodivergence, it's likely that some of him is out of step with his peers mentally, and in this way he feels he cannot connect with them. The phone calls, the spaghetti cooking, these are things that are more for their benefit than for his. You'll notice that Undyne seems to be the only character to properly reciprocate Papyrus's affections, and even then she intentionally withholds being a royal guard from him. Papyrus is a beacon of care and hope, but he so rarely gets that affection back unconditionally. The result is a man with many connections who doesn't feel he's getting everything he needs in return. While that is a sad and lonely existence, remember that Papyrus, living on the surface, has new avenues to pursue and new friends to make. It's hard to imagine this lonesome existence could exist forever for someone so relentlessly positive. The lesson is, then, give love unconditionally, for the alternative is no love at all.
What is a fucking 1999 Windows ME right here? What do we got? The internet! I'm quite popular there. You have no fucking idea, Papyrus.
One of the fundamental human flaws in the modern age is the tendency for people to assume that someone is trying to exploit them. This fear is founded and comes from a high degree of exploitation present on the internet, in business, and in personal relationships. The fear of being exploited makes us reserved and terrified of other people and what they might secretly desire from us. Papyrus is the antidote to this fear. A man who not only fearlessly trusts, but is not so naive to think that everyone around him is good. A man who gives love freely and with mercy, who forgives even the hardened evil of genocide Frisk. Papyrus forces open his eyes to the world and sees what he wants because he understands that we have no control over our own fears. The fear of being exploited leads us to not want to do selfless things. It makes us wary. If I pay for someone's lunch today, will they ever get the money back to me? If I drive someone to the airport, will I ever get anything in return? This misses the point of both altruism and reciprocal altruism. No one owes you anything in life, and if you drive someone to the airport, do it because they're your friend, and the act in and of itself is rewarding. The reciprocity that comes from loving people is not material wealth. It isn't a ride to the airport or a free lunch. It's the love you get in return, even if it's not enough. The appreciation, the smile in someone's eyes when they say thank you. The joy when they take the check away from you and say, you got lunch last time. It is Papyrus giving Undyne a gift and seeing her smile. It is Papyrus admonishing his brother for his antics. It is a cool dude going on a date.
I too can wear clothing. Guys, hold up. Guys, we have to be silent for this. Oh, Jesus. Oh, my God. The coolness. Oh. My secret style. I can't even fucking joke here. I hate it. I love it. I can't lie. I can't lie to you, Papyrus. No! A genuine compliment! I'm almost there, dog.